It's the Smart Driving Cars podcast. We appreciate you spending some time with us. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alan Kornhauser. Hi again, Alan.
Hi, Fred. Hi, everyone. Nice to have you.
And with us this week is one of our favorites, publisher of The Dispatcher, based in Sweden, with a wealth of knowledge about transportation and mobility, Michael Senna. Thanks for joining us again, Michael.
My pleasure. Wonderful to be here again.
Wonderful to have you, Michael.
Thank you.
Michael, you've got a new edition of The Dispatcher out, and it is headlined, Car OEMs Driving Toward Relevance or Perdition. Are we ready to be online car scribers? I think you've coined a new word there, Michael.
I looked for it. I'm sure it exists somewhere else, but it had a special ring for me.
I think car scribers previously meant people who write on vehicles. Seriously. So you've got a new one.
Okay.
Readers will quickly learn that you like a nice steak, a cold glass of real milk, bought at the local corner store, and you're worried that those things may vanish. And so might your right to own your own car, or at least buy one from a car dealership. So go into this a little for us.
Yeah, it's the old zero-sum game that unfortunately we're playing a little bit of that in our cancel culture today. It seems like there's a move to put our car buying into another mode rather than going into the dealer and schmoozing and talking about how I can get a few dollars or a few crowns or a few pounds off and trading a little bit here and trading a little bit there. The combination of online sales and subscriptions seems to be more in the OEMs and the headquarters future, but of course not necessarily in the dealerships future. So what I wanted to do in this article was just put some thoughts down about what are the pluses and what are the minuses for not only the OEMs who are manufacturing and selling the cars or the dealers, but also for us, the people who have been buying cars from dealers over the years, and some of us appreciate it, like it, others have difficulty with it, but that's been the only option that we've had until very recently.
So one of the things that you did was add up some numbers here. You looked at Care by Volvo, which is, I guess, one of the early car subscription services out there.
Yeah. It's not only one of the early ones, but it's one of the ones that seems to be the most serious about trying to do this as a business on a global scale. You can subscribe for cars in North America and many countries in Europe, not every state in the United States, but most of the states. And they've got an organization, a department that's set up to do this and specifically to work with subscriptions. And they're taking it seriously. They want to make this a very important part of how they put cars. And I said to have a car, to put cars in the hands of users where they can have a car for 3 years. And when looking at the numbers, I mean, they're not going to do this if they're going to lose money. I mean, I think the whole point of this is to improve their bottom lines, to be able to generate more money, to put less money in the hands of, or the pockets of middlemen, which dealers are. But it's a very difficult proposition, and particularly because it's the way we buy cars and the way cars are sold is very different in Europe versus the United States and Canada. I mean, in the US and Canada, the dealers buy the cars. They've got a retail price or a wholesale price for the car. They've got a manufacturer's suggested retail price. And they also have some bonuses that they're going to be able to get if they make their sales quotas. So they can negotiate. You can buy a car that you want. You can order, red leather and buff finish and everything else that you want. It's just going to take you longer to get it. But you're still going through the dealers in the U.S. You're not really ordering through directly to the OEM as you are with Tesla. And right now Tesla is pretty much the only company where you can order a car online. There's no subscriptions with Tesla, but you can order a car online. With the subscription process, they're looking at a combination of ordering the car online and then picking the car up at their dealers. And Tesla didn't have any dealers, so they came up with a completely new way of having a car. But all of the other companies already have a dealer network, so they're going to try to use the dealers in order to be able to deliver the car and service the cars. But if you look at it as I did, I went to my local Volvo dealer, talked with him about it, and got some insights on what's in it for them. And it turns out there's not very much, if anything, that's in it for them, because they would prefer, especially in Europe, where they're not buying the cars, you're ordering the car. I walk in, I've bought now the last 3 cars that we bought. Went into the dealer and I said, this is the car I want. I know that this is, you're selling it. You have on your dealership, you've got the car there. You've got all the prices. That's the car I want. There's no negotiation. How long is it going to take for me to get it? I'll be back and pick it up. And then I go in every at least once a year to get the car serviced, and it's on warranty for a period of years. I mean, that's the way it works. And they're not buying the car as they are in the United States. It's very, very different. So how the subscription is going to work in Sweden versus how it's going to work in, eventually in California or New York or New Jersey, it's going to be different. So I don't know. As I said, if I had to decide today whether I would do it, I'd look at the numbers and look at the advantages, and I see that, what do I get for this? Well, I get to have a new car once every year after the first year, and I can continue doing that. And for that, I pay a premium of about $5,400 over the course of 3 years. Is it worth it? Maybe it is for some people, but it wouldn't be for me.
But Michael, how fundamentally different is this from leasing a car? I mean, when you're leasing a car, you're actually, it's a subscription. You're paying a monthly fee, but after a certain amount of time, you turn it in, get another one, you have an option, whatever. I mean, really, where's the fundamental difference? And let's follow the money.
Yeah,
where is the money?
As I said, I've done I've done everything except steal a car. So I mean, I've leased 4 cars, and of those, I bought 2 of them out after the lease was up. So from a standpoint of the subscription, what is the difference between the subscription versus the lease? From the dealer standpoint, there's a major difference, because with the subscription, you're going directly to the OEM in all of these cases, but you're picking it up at the dealer. You're kind of using the dealer as your funnel. But from the standpoint of the amount of money, it's a little bit less with the lease payment than it is with the subscription payment. With the lease, you've got the car for 3 years. You have the same buyout. Sorry, you don't have the same buyout with the subscription. With a lease, you can buy the car or you can turn it back in. It's not a great deal to buy the car, especially if you've gone over the mileage or the total number of kilometers that you're supposed to drive during that 3 or 4, whatever it is, period. When I talked to the dealer said, look, you can get as a deal, as a lease, you can get the insurance, you can get the tires, you can get the service. Basically, you get everything except having the possibility to use a different car. In the case of Volvo, once a year. In the case of a couple of the other, like Buick or Cadillac, you can do it kind of once a week if you want. But it varies from one company to another. But am I going to take all my stuff out of my car once a week or even once a year? It takes me a year to figure out how to use the radio, and then get a new car. You know, there are, of course, there are advantages to this for those customers who feel that they like the concept. But you know, there's the other possibilities is that you get a car when you need it. You know, you can subscribe to a car when you need it. This isn't what Care by Volvo is, and what the other solutions are. I need a car for a week, and so. But then, what's the difference between that and renting? Nothing.
Or car share. I mean, that car share was sort of a little bit of that because, you know, I don't need it all the time. I'm only going to get it when I need it.
Yep.
And otherwise, you know, let somebody else use it in this sense. You know, how it actually plays out financially, maybe perceptually. I mean, a lot of buying cars has to deal with perception rather than reality, right?
Absolutely.
You're selling a dream.
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, if with this, I get to use a Ferrari once. If they let me do that, I mean, never. Go ahead, go.
Yeah. No, I think that the whole idea of saying, well, you know, let's just go into car sharing just very briefly. You buy a car and you own it, you put it someplace so that you can have it. It's the convenience. You know, if everyone depended on Airbnb to have a place to live, it would be a very different world that we live in. You know, this whole idea, back to the 95% thing, where the car is we're not using it 95% of the time. I've gone through the exercise here with all of these things. How much, you know, whatever you own, you don't use your toothbrush 95% of the time or 99% of the time. You know, you own things because it's convenient for you to own things, and if it's not, you don't own them. You know, or you buy them and when you need it, you can't remember where it is because you haven't used it for 5 years. So.
Got a lot of drawers filled with all that stuff at the house, right?
Yeah. So I don't, you know, that argument doesn't hold water or a cold glass of milk for me.
But do you think your fear is realistic, that this could be forced on you and everyone else? That
look, if it turns out, and this is why I use these examples, if it turns out that the companies decide that this is the way they have to do things in order for them to stay in business, then that's the way it'll be. You know, I would like to have, or let's put it another way. My mother would like to have had her corner grocery store where she bought everything she needed. I mean, there was a butcher, it was a baker, everything was there. It was a block away. But when she said to me one day, you know, there's this big truck delivering things to Galdieri's that was called Galdieri's Market. There's a really big truck delivering thing. Why is that big truck going there? And the light bulb went on, and Galdieri's disappeared after a while, and the only thing the big trucks were going to were the Walmarts. So if it turns out that that's the way things can be and have to be because it's the economical way of doing things, then it'll be that way, and we won't have dealerships, and you know, people will be car sharing or doing whatever. You know, maybe they'll even have mobility as a service. I don't know.
With driverless vehicles, of course.
Yeah, as we said, we don't always get what we want. We don't always choose what we need either.
Yeah. So after a year, what does Volvo do with all of those cars? I mean, if they're only going out for a year and then coming back to the manufacturer, what happens to all those vehicles?
There are two possibilities also for the I don't think I mentioned this, in the car sharing. You can share a car that costs less if it's a year old. So it could be going to somebody else, not car sharing, but subscription. It could be going to a subscriber who gets a lower price and has a year-old car rather than having a brand new car. So that's one possibility. The other possibility, of course, is that it goes into the dealer and it's sold. Right? Or it goes into an auction. More likely, it goes into the auction where it's sold, or it goes to a car rental company. I mean, there are lots of possibilities for where these cars can go, but oftentimes it's the dealer who's organizing all this. I don't know how the car companies are going to develop the same kind of infrastructure to do what the dealers are doing for them. And dealers do an awful lot of work. When on the work that I was doing with Volvo On Call, I spent a lot of time with the national sales companies and also going to the dealers and spending time with the dealers, and because in the end they're the ones who had to turn the cars over to the customers, and we had to work with them. And during the 20 years that I was doing that, I learned a lot. And you can go around the dealer network, but in the end, you're going to pay a price for it, especially in the United States, where the dealers are, they're buying the cars. They're the sales point for the cars. Same is true in China and Russia. They buy the cars and then they sell them, and then they can negotiate the prices. Whereas in Europe, most cars are sold. Most people order their car, and then the car is delivered to the dealer, and then it's handed over to the customer.
Well, it's a great read. Also,
Thanks.
in the latest dispatch here, you talk about the Volvo Waymo deal, and
Yep.
you don't think it's such a big deal.
No, it's not a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal. I mean, I'm sure that there are a lot of people, including the people at Waymo and Volvo, who think it's a big deal. But as I've tried to explain in the article, it's not exclusive. Waymo is not going to be doing this just with Volvo. It's already doing it with 3 or 4 other companies, exactly the same thing. There's a hint in there, and then this is from has nothing to do with me knowing anything about these companies, but in the news release that came out, there's a hint in there that this car is going to be developed for this kind of service, and Waymo is providing this kind of service, but it isn't exclusive, so it could be used for somebody else can come in there and do exactly the same thing. That's one reason, but the other reason is that there have been so many announcements that Volvo has made, so many partnerships and so many deals that they've been making with various companies over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. And you have to wonder why these things are happening, and what's the reason behind all of these announcements. Make cars, sell cars, get car of the year, you do well, and they've been doing well, and these announcements have absolutely nothing to do with how well they're doing. They're producing good cars, people are buying them. So doing deals with Waymo or especially Uber. So I mentioned a number of agreements that they've gotten into over the last 3, 4, 5 years that seem to be much more for the folks who are investing, for the people who are going to be putting money into an IPO. And Volvo tried an IPO. They didn't make it. They pulled back. And now in the last issue, I wrote about Geely making an announcement a few months ago that they were looking at the possibility of having Volvo merge with Geely Auto. So Geely Auto has all the other brands, and Volvo has Polestar, owns 50% of Polestar, owns 30% of Lynk & Co. And so these Volvo and Geely come together, and then there's one big company that has all of these brands. One of the brands is Volvo, another is Polestar, another is Lotus, and then they do initial public offering with that company. I mean, the key here is that Geely and the Lease who owns Geely hasn't put all this together just to own companies. I mean, he's in the business of expanding and making money and doing what an entrepreneur of the scale of Lease does, which is to take the money and reinvest it and make something bigger. He's invested in Volvo Trucks. He's invested in Daimler. Daimler owns Mercedes-Benz. I mean, there's no this isn't this isn't something that somebody's just doing to collect car companies. He's in the business of making money, and that's terrific. That's what people should be doing. And that seems to me that a lot of these announcements have to do with increasing the value to potential investors so that they will buy the stock. And once they buy the stock, and then they own part of the company, and then the money goes into buying something else. So
one of the troubles I had with the deal were that I couldn't understand. Yes, of course, it's being done partially, if not largely, for what you say with respect to the valuation of the company, or let's say the hype associated with it, or whatever we might want to do. But in this business, if we if we look at the actual mobility that one might be trying to create by this, which is the affordable shared ride, driverless mobility, that my perception of that whole thing, or where I would like to see it go. I've sort of always had kind of the feeling that the car was more of a commodity, and that the real sauce behind that mobility system is the technology package that you put on the car to be the driver, and that Waymo basically controlling that secret sauce on that, with probably maybe very little competition, and ability to put that on really any skateboard, any OEM, for them to operate, for Waymo to operate, as opposed to it being the commodity who says, now I need this secret sauce on top of my commodity to create a unique element that I'm not taking to the market. I guess my question is, who do you see taking the combination to market to actually, deliver the mobility and generate the revenue out of the combination? Is it Volvo, or is it Waymo, or is it even a third party that's put out there? I don't know, independent of those two. Who does that piece?
Well, I think my answer to that question would have to be tempered by what I've been writing over the last 5 months or 6 months.
Please do. Please.
About who's going to be controlling the primary value of the vehicle.
Yeah.
The primary value of the vehicle is not going to be Waymo's kit. It's not going to be that, whatever they're going to put on there, they're going to have to buy it from somebody else. They're not going to manufacture it. So they're going to have to give away that value.
In other words, the hardware, the computers, and then sensors.
All that stuff.
Those end up being commodities. Okay.
No, they don't end up being commodities.
Oh, they don't.
No, they don't, because you've got, somebody has to make them, somebody has to buy them, and there's a whole value chain that's built into that. And Waymo's not at the end of that value chain. The only thing that Waymo is adding is software. And if you think,
is that the secret sauce? Which is what I'm trying to get you to think about, or to tell me. That's not the secret sauce.
The software?
Yeah.
No.
In other words, that's a commodity. Anybody can make that.
Exactly.
Anybody can.
Exactly. Which is why there are so many people in the business. Which is why the Cruise and all these Argos and you name it. Everybody thinks that they've got the way to do this, and all they need to do is to put themselves in front of an investor. They get some money, they start doing it. They get GM to buy them, they get Ford to buy them, they get Volkswagen to buy them, and that's so. What's the big deal with that? It's not. There's not a big deal with that.
You don't see a differentiation in that secret sauce. That there's one that really works, and the other stuff's crap.
No, and we already know that our friend,
all of the miles
Elon,
all of the miles that Waymo has put on vehicles out there, and you're mentioning Tesla now too, and all those miles that Tesla is racking up on Autopilot.
Yeah, well,
aren't they the real value? Or no?
Elon Musk says that he's got a system and it's the best system, and he's,
of course, he says that.
Better. Of course,
yeah, of course,
so
he says that.
So does Waymo. I
mean, of course, they all say that. Yeah, of course, they say that. Yeah, go ahead.
So no, I don't think that the value is there, and I think I've said this before many times that in my system. My way of thinking about what Waymo is doing as a part of a company whose main business is brokering ads. Waymo's not in the business of, and won't be, maybe in somebody else's lifetime, in somebody else's parallel universe where they might be sold. They're not in Alphabet's business. They're not in Google's business. What they're doing is something that's supporting the businesses that those companies are in. Now, whether that software in combination of hardware that Waymo is putting together can be used in one vehicle or 100 vehicles of different brands, because we'll have that many vehicles again and that many brands when everybody's electric cars and everybody can make an electric skateboard. Do I think they're going to get the primary value? No, I don't. You know, in the end, the people who are going to get the primary value are the ones who are putting the electricity in the cars. I mean, if you say you want to follow the money, where is the money right now in the making and production of selling cars? For the OEMs, it's in parts, services, and accessories. It's not Volvo. Before the 2009 crisis, General Motors was losing money on every car they sold. But why do they continue to sell the cars? Because they were making some money, at least, on parts, services, and accessories. If you go back now to the car sharing, where or a subscriber, if you take away, if you give away the services to an external company, let's say you can completely kill your network, your dealer network, and now you're using a service like Bosch or Mekonomen that we have here, you're giving away the value of the parts, services, and accessories, or let's say the services. So what have you got left? You've got accessories. Well, you know, if every car basically is the same, you've eliminated the accessories that you're selling. And spare parts, well, with electric cars, you don't need that many spare parts. There aren't. So, you know, where is the value in this? And the value turns out, in this case, it's in that skateboard. It's delivering 50% of the value, the total cost. If you can add more onto that, all the better. But if you're manufacturing the batteries, and if you know somebody's manufacturing the batteries, somebody's delivering the electricity, you know, you've made up basically the price of the car.
Very interesting.
On that front, Michael, with Tesla, the plans for the Gigafactory near the New Berlin airport, you write in the dispatcher that you have some concerns that demands being made by the environment lobby in Germany might bollocks up this whole thing, throw a monkey wrench in there.
You know, it's so weird. This area, so this part of what was East Germany, where right now the major portion of the soft coal industry is located, and the environmental lobbies have been, you know, brutal. You know, get rid of this as quickly as possible, and it doesn't matter how many people are going to be out of work. Now you've got somebody coming in, says, you know, we're going to put in 5,000, 7,000, whatever number of jobs, but it's almost as many jobs as that they're losing in the coal industry. First thing that happens is that folks come in there and say, you can't do this, you know, you got to do this, you got to do this. And what's happened just within these last 6 months is he's halved the size of what this was going to be. He's taken out the one whole portion of this, the battery production. It's getting smaller and smaller, and you know, eventually you have a sense of how he acts, that he may just say, look, forget it, we don't need to be here. We could have been anywhere. We could go to Texas. You know, you don't like me in California, you don't let me go to work, I'm going to put my business in Texas. You don't like me here in Germany, I'll put it in France.
Sweden.
I'll go someplace else.
You go to Sweden.
I think he would have problems, I think, in locating it in Sweden. There's a few companies here that might not like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that I think I've always made it very clear in the writing, and when I've talked here and in other times of presentations, my viewpoint is that if you do what's now occurred with COVID, if you close down the world, you satisfy the requirements of the environmentalists, but basically to what they're asking for, which is no emissions. But what's the price? You know, we're paying hundreds of billions of dollars and euro to keep people alive, because they can't go to work. They can't do anything. Most people are working right now on the money that's being delivered by the government. If they are working, and some of us are able to work at home, but as I think I've written, that's a very small portion. It's maybe up to 30% of people can work from home. We are the non-essentials. Us sitting here, we're the non-essentials. The essentials are the ones that keeping everything running, keeping the food that's coming to our house. It's keeping the electricity running. It's keeping the roads clean. It's keeping the everything that needs to happen. It's keeping the hospitals filled with people who can do their jobs. That's 70% of the people. They're the essential workers. We're not essential. So when everybody says, well, everybody's going to start working from home, it might be 10% of 30% who are not going to go back to work. So for me, the important thing is that people have jobs, that people can continue working and supporting themselves. And if everything had to be done the way the environmentalists want it to be done, we don't have a place to live. We need to solve the problems, but we don't have to solve them by doing things the way they are demanding that they be done, including and especially selling electric cars. I have been totally against the whole concept of electric cars as the primary way of reducing emissions. There are other solutions, but we're not investigating them because we're now convinced that electric cars are going to be the answer. Having said that, I think that Tesla is doing a terrific job of keeping people employed, and I'm seeing more and more Teslas here in our little community.
And what, $1,700 a share yesterday or something like that? Well, I mean, it's like ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, but I've written and not maybe pulled it from who knows where. That it really is more about the way the car is sold, the way it's presented, and so on, than the fact that it's electric. And in a sense, maybe the electric piece of it has been potentially more of a burden to them than a solution. Simply because, again, there's all the apprehension about buying electric and so on. And somehow they've made it like the iPhone, or again, a hula hoop. I just got to have one. And it's in some sense a craze, and I guess in some sense God bless him or whatever.
Yeah, he's done a great job.
He's pumped it up, even though I guess Germany says, oh man, he overstated. Of course he overstates. Look, you hear something from Elon, I mean, you have to filter part of it. You can't take it all without some grains of salt, right?
Well, thank you so much, Michael. Always thought-provoking.
My pleasure.
Michael, thank you.
We'll continue in just a moment, but this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. And on the website there, we should point out it's a good idea to read the white paper. It's titled The Smart Transportation Revolution. It's under the Insights and News tab. You can find a lot of great information there to help you make more informed decisions. You may know already that ETFs can be a smart way to spread risk with your investments, focusing on a particular category. The site again is motoetf.com. Well, getting to some of the headlines in the latest smart driving car newsletter, Alan, Reuters has reported that Amazon plans at least $100 million in stock awards to retain key employees of Zoox, and has the right to walk away from the deal if a large number of those employees decide to leave. So, I mean, this kind of clause has been in a lot of contracts before, right? But I guess a lot of questions here.
One always has to look at the terms. One is the amount, the two are the terms. The terms usually mean, in part, ways to get out if things don't look good. And the second piece is, does all the money actually really get transferred if all of a sudden when you really look under the rug, there's nothing there. So in any of these deals, that's what's involved. And so it's come out with this. I guess we've all speculated that here maybe it's the people that are worth the most, in a $1 billion deal, or plus 10% out there for the people, and it's not a whole heck of a lot, but it is a heck of a lot. And it means that really, to me, it implies that, again, IP is important, but IP needs people around it that know what to do with the IP, and
well, they're the ones who created it very often.
They're the ones that created it, and in the end, people are important. As I said, we're trying to take people out of driving cars, because hey, all you do is misbehave when you're a person driving a car, and you're better off taking them out of there and let people do what they're really good at doing. Which may be, protecting IP.
And this is it, often what you see when there are deals like this is that other companies, other tech companies, see it as an opportunity to go in and do some recruiting. Yeah, and that's obviously what's going on.
That's obviously what's going on. Although, in almost any of these deals, if all of a sudden, the guts of the entity disappears. Because what you don't want the entity anymore. So, yes.
Well, Amazooks is the topic of the next live Driving the Debate discussion at 2 p.m. Eastern on Monday. Again, this is live, and you never know what's going to happen. To participate in the online component, you need to register. Go to drivingthedebate.com. It should be a lot of fun, Alan.
Yeah, well, we should. We're going to discuss this, and also discuss, what the implications of really Amazon taking another step in explicitly another step in this direction. They have had to have been working on this very intensely. It's fundamental to their business and their business model. And so, this is an interesting one. If it's not Zooks, it'll be somebody else.
Yeah, you've been saying that since before we started doing this podcast, that Amazon's got to be doing something with this because it makes sense for their business model to be out there with autonomous delivery vehicles.
Absolutely, fundamental to what attracts. Maybe I'm just looking at myself too much. What attracts me to Amazon is free shipping. They bury the cost of that someplace. Of course, it's not free. It costs money, so you end up having to pay for it, and you pay for it. But all of a sudden, an expense that's sitting there in their balance sheet, that they have the opportunity to take that thing and drop it to the bottom line with technology. My goodness, that's to me.
And they're doing so much more of it, not just from the Amazon warehouses, but with their acquisition of Whole Foods, and through the pandemic, how many people were having food delivered and, getting used to that. So it just, their needs are exponentially higher.
Next thing you're going to hear is they're probably going to, get into the restaurant business, but not the restaurant business, the takeout business, the creation of the food that then ends up getting delivered. So if we're not going to the restaurants, they're going to bring the restaurants to us. I mean, that sucker's coming. It's got to be coming.
Well, Uber announced a deal with Postmates, $2.65 billion, and that's a meal delivery service. So Uber is...
Yeah,
it's going to be a big part of their business for that kind of money.
Well, it better be, because their other part of their business is really hurting, and they've got to find something to do. And yes, if you can put the pieces together, each of them, have a distribution such that they're peaked at a certain time. The kind of the tough part about the food or the meal delivery business is it tends to be before lunch and before dinner, and the rest of the time don't bother. if you have something, if you could have something else to do in those valleys and you put those things together, it can help you. Unfortunate thing is most of Uber's other businesses are sort of all peaked, you know, before dinner, maybe before lunch, certainly after breakfast, whatever. But yeah, hey, they've got to diversify, because unless they get driverless on their main business, they're in trouble.
Salika Talbot has written a couple of pieces for Forbes. One is headlined "Autonomous Vehicles Potential to Remove Discrimination in Transportation." And she makes some important and hopeful points. And we've been talking about this issue over the last couple of weeks here too.
Right, and Salika weighs in here, and I think weighs in very well, and discusses that. Look, we have a real issue. We've created this situation in which we have the mobility disadvantaged. You know, it's been with us for a number of years. As if you're capable of driving and want to drive and have the wherewithal to drive, then, you know, life is good. We've created an infrastructure that basically allows you to go from anywhere to anywhere at any time. And so all of a sudden, you know, you can take advantage of all those things. But if you happen to be on the other side of the fence of that one, or on the other side of the tracks of that one, then, you know, comparatively, it is an enormous disadvantage. And unfortunately, the systems that have been built, the transit systems that have provided the mobility for those who for whatever reason don't provide it for themselves, is, you know, when you actually look at it, you have to roll your eyes. The comparisons, I mean, it's not even close. You take kids who can't drive, have to take school buses to school. Oh my goodness. And where'd we put the schools? We decided we're going to create regional schools, so you have to travel all day to get there. And so, you know, they can't go and easily by themselves. And then you look at people who you know, what jobs do they have access to? They have access to the jobs that happen to be on the transit system that's been created. All the jobs that don't happen to be on that transit system, too. How do you get there? I guess you walk, okay? But, you know, opportunities within walking that you can do for yourself if you can't drive it is not all that great.
Autonomous vehicles really do have the potential to change a lot of things.
Yeah. Lyft and Uber began that. The problem is that you have the labor component on that, and that ends up either being expensive, or you're abusing the people who provide the labor. Abusing, I mean, you're enslaving them. They're doing work for nothing. Okay, so, you know, you're kind of stuck, and the only way you're stuck to provide that mobility, as I see, I don't know, somebody tell me, give me another suggestion, is the you know, put a gizmo in there that does it. And the beauty of the gizmo is that it at least so far obeys Moore's law, which means that tomorrow it's going to be twice as good and half the cost. And then day after tomorrow, it's twice as good again and half the cost again. You know, the sucker asymptotically to zero. Wow. Okay, you got to say that. Oh my goodness. And that means it can scale. It does that even faster the bigger it gets. Whereas most things, you know, if you have to have people involved, the bigger it gets, the more pain in the butt it is, the more difficult it is to manage all those cats. And it gets even harder, so it doesn't scale well. This thing scales beautifully. Whoa, I mean, no wonder investors are interested in this. I mean, what's an investor interested in? An investor is interested in something that scales. It gets better
and becomes more profitable over time too.
Well, that's the definition of scale. It becomes better, easier, cheaper, but as size goes up, there's a front end cost, but the slope as you get bigger is small, and so economies of scale. I don't know, whatever the economists use, we all use for. That's what you want to look
we're
for.
hoping to have Salika join us in the not too distant future. Her other article is headlined "The Political Economy of Autonomous Vehicles," and in this one she talks about the impact really on state and local budgets. If a lot of people are no longer driving private vehicles and we're all in autonomous vehicles, what happens with driver's license fees, vehicle registrations, public garages, and all that money that local governments, state governments rely on?
Yeah, well, I love Salika because she was at New Jersey Department of Motor Vehicles, which of course does the licensing here in New Jersey, and went with her boss to Washington when he became administrator for the Federal Motor Carrier Administration, and yes, but when you look at the amount of money there, it's small. When you look at the value created, it's enormous. Okay? So therefore, out of that value created, you should be able to find a way to support that. We aren't going to be able to put out speeding tickets anymore. Oh my goodness, I got to get a tissue. I mean,
What happens to the annual PBA party? I don't know.
Well, I mean, Dunkin' Donuts. Well, no, I won't say. Cut that one out. No, whatever. You can leave it. Whatever. No, we can joke around a little bit. It is serious business. But my goodness, I mean, isn't it a shame that someone that is so well trained as a police officer to deal with really challenging things is out there handing out speeding tickets, broken taillight tickets, hiding behind a billboard, whatever. I mean, how degrading is that to them?
Right.
Okay? Entrapping somebody to collect $100. And then when they don't,
not to mention even the danger when there is from time to time a chase of some sort or a high speed.
Well, at least we're I think we've gone beyond that because, 50 years ago, we realized that, my goodness, that's just not what we should do. And even though, Hollywood is out there, making that seem like the most glamorous thing you ever did, at least, they got off that stuff. And we're beyond that. But when you look at these trained, very well trained, very competent individuals doing such chicken poop stuff. Come on. For what? Because we happen to misbehave on the roadway? What we need to do is have our hands slapped. We need to make it serious. And the OEMs need to go in there and put the technology in there that doesn't let us do that.
Well, that's the key.
Instead of advertising,
once that's done, then it's done.
Instead of them going out and advertising and making me think like, oh my goodness, I can go, 130 miles. My speedometer says I can go 160 miles an hour. That thing, it says that on there. Okay, I happen to still have one of those that sort of does that. Where am I going to do 160 miles an hour in Jersey? Come on. And even the stuff that we'll get to, Germany says you can go out and test your autonomous vehicle on our road, but you're only allowed to take it up to 80 miles an hour on the Autobahn. I mean, what? My goodness, everybody else gets to go 160, but if you have one of these guys, oh no, that's fine. Okay, that would make us behave much better. That is great. Let's do that instead of putting these people and then creating the tensions and so on. And as I like to say, here in Princeton, the police, if you have a broken tail light, okay, they pull you over to give you a broken tail light ticket. They check your license. They then check to see if there's an outstanding warrant. Because you didn't fix the taillight, the broken taillight in your car, and you got a ticket in the town next door for it, and you couldn't afford to pay for it because to fix it, that's why it's broken now and still broken, is because you prefer to eat. And now because there's a warrant out for my arrest because I didn't pay the ticket for the previous time I got a ticket that broken taillight, I'm not going to get another ticket and get arrested. I mean, how do you get out from under this stuff?
But most of the time, it isn't people who pulled over who look like you or me.
Well, whether it is or it isn't, we don't even need to go that far. Okay. Why is the Princeton police enforcing who knows what tickets that they got that Hamilton Township put out? First of all, it's an agreement between towns that one town will help collect the money for chicken poop tickets that were passed out in that town so that we would get out of here. Stop that stuff. Plus, it ends up being peanuts.
Well, you were talking about the Autobahn, Alan, and Intel-owned Mobileye has obtained a permit to test autonomous vehicles in Germany. You kind of alluded to this.
Yeah.
But the plan is to use safety drivers. So in the newsletter, it seems like you're wondering, why do they need a permit if there's a safety driver?
I don't know. Why do you need a permit? Okay. What law is it? What German law? Is there a German law like in New York, you got to have at least one hand on the wheel? Okay, I'll rest my hand on the wheel. How do they know that I've disconnected the wheel from this wheel from the wheels and have something else going in there to do that? I mean, they're going to turn the car upside down and check it? I don't know.
In fairness, you do need the permits. These companies have needed permits in the U.S. as well, the different states and entities.
Yeah,
and then they need special permission to take it further and take the safety driver out. So.
Right. Well, of course, if you're going to take the safety driver out.
But even with it, they've needed permission.
Yeah, I know they've needed permission, but somehow Elon's out there in all of his Teslas, and I don't think Bernard Soriano there at California DMV has given him. Hi, Bernard. Never. But that's Elon. Elon gets to do a lot of things. Never mind.
More on Elon in a minute. Too Simple is partnering with truck maker Navistar to build a fleet of autonomous trucks. And you think the focus needs to shift a bit, I think.
Yeah, I don't think the focus on trucks has been correct in some sense since the beginning. I wasn't still not a fan necessarily of platooning, and not necessarily a fan of this either. There is a real challenge with respect to commercial drivers in big vehicles on our roads. Their job is extremely difficult. They feed their families by sitting there having to pay attention to what's going on for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And if they lose attention for 5 seconds, they're dead.
Right.
Okay. To me, I mean, I lose attention on what I'm doing all the time.
So the idea of the technology is to make their jobs better and safer.
Where is OSHA on this? Where is Occupational Safety Administration in this? If this was a chicken producing place or a pork producing place, or even an office at Gold Mine Sachs, they'd be in there saying these employees are being absolutely mistreated. Okay, I don't know. Hey, talk to me here. Yet somehow we've put up with this. And I can't imagine any CEO of any trucking company, U.S. Express, J.B. Hunt, Schneider, you name them, Cowan, any of them, who don't love their drivers. They're their employees. They're not gig workers. Yes, there are independent truckers out there too, but these are their professionals. And I think every one of them would love to be able to put technology in there that improves that quality of life. And maybe then the FMCA would go out there and say, hey, let's give them another hour of time that they can work and in fact become more productive, better feed their family. But we're going to put in there the amenities that allow them to have a much less stressful, much more enjoyable, much more sane work environment. That's where it should be focused. And guess what? That's probably going to reduce crashes. That's going to reduce liabilities. And most trucking, I'd say most, I'll just say many trucking companies are all self-insured, at least to the beginning. They might go to Michael Scridato and buy some, some insurance to cover the really big stuff, but it's mostly self-insured. So every time there's a bang, it comes out of the CEO's pocket. Those CEOs know what the value of that is. What is that? At least $10,000 a truck per year. Okay, chop that in half. You have $5,000 to play with per year. How much does this technology cost? I don't know. $15,000. You can probably put more of it to improve so many lives. Why isn't that the focus?
And you would think, given the way you describe it, that the drivers would be behind it, but a lot of them are sort of misinformed, more than likely, about the potential of losing jobs, and that's what their fear is with autonomous technology.
Of course, and the interesting thing about the business is there's a driver shortage. Okay, so what this would do is make the job much more attractive, have much more drivers out there, everybody be happier, you'd save money instead of paying lawyers and ambulances and EMTs and hospitals, you'd be putting money in your pocket. I mean, you don't need to sharpen your pencil. I mean, this is back of the envelope. Should be boom. Why isn't that being pushed? And I don't know, maybe somebody's going to say it at the automated vehicle symposium, coming up, but instead, let's run trucks save 1%, 2%, 3% on aerodynamics. Well, sorry, I don't know. People hate me.
No, they don't. Onward to Tesla, Alan. They're making headlines again, of course. A German court ruled Tesla's claims for autopilot and full self-driving are misleading. So
we needed a court to tell us that. I mean, if they looked at any advertising from any automobile company, they would find probably all their advertising misleading. Look at some of the Daimler Mercedes ads. I mean, they're running through deserts and, rooster tails are going up all over the place, or they're driving Jeeps through snow that's this deep.
So I don't know what the upshot's going to be from this.
It's the Mad Men. It's
Well, Tesla doesn't do a lot of I guess in a sense it's advertising, but
of course Elon is
the advertising.
He is the advertiser, and guess what? He does it. It's all free. Why? Because you and I pick it up and talk about him. Okay,
and a lot of other people too. On that note, Tesla's stock has been way up to more than $1,700 a share earlier this week before settling down some. Investors using the online brokerage Robinhood were reportedly behind that jump. And there were also rumors of another new Gigafactory in China. So look at those wild swings. I mean, it's I don't know what's going on with that.
I don't know. I guess, people who sit there and watch this stuff a lot closer than I watch it sort of has suggested that. I don't know. If you just look at the fundamentals, here's a company who just went through the pandemic, and it looks like people were buying their cars, as many as they could produce. And, you know, it's probably just the fundamentals, you know. I mean, poor Elon got his wrist slapped and got his CEO-ship taken away because he sort of said, oh, I got some people who want to buy this for $400 a share. And the SEC said, oh, you're pumping it up. What did it hit? What did you say? 1,700? Is that more than 400? I mean, Jesus, SEC should go. Oh, sorry, we didn't. Whatever. We can have fun with it.
There are some analysts out there saying that over the next year or so they'll go over 2,000. But who knows? I mean, it could be the way they've rocketed up this year. It doesn't seem reasonable, but who am I to say, right?
Yeah, you know, I'm going to Holland and I'm going to buy a bunch of tulips, you know. I mean, yeah. Hey, there are some very interesting charts that one can look at on the web of bubbles, you know. In fact, my youngest daughter did her senior thesis here at Princeton on bubbles, economic bubbles, but you know, it's really interesting. Hey, look at Amazon. What's it selling for? 3,000 or whatever. Why didn't I buy it at $3? Fred, talk to me here.
Well, we want to remind people again, Alan, about the Driving the Debate session. It's scheduled for 2:00 Eastern on Monday. Register to take part at drivingthedebate.com. The focus is going to be on that Amazon Zoox deal. And you can find previous discussions on the site too. Been a redesign there. It's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
And that'll do it.
Yeah, and I think on the Amazon Zoox, it's really then I think in part people need to think about is that, my goodness, we need to move not only people but stuff. And if all of a sudden the technology can move stuff as well as people, actually it probably can move stuff a lot easier than people. And certainly it can move stuff without, you know, all the angst associated with moving people. So in some sense, it's almost a perfect laboratory first step to doing it. And if there's economic support for doing that, if you can in a sense make money doing that and make even more money doing that well and really well, then all of a sudden they make moving us trivial and the value delivered. So the question is that the dynamic here, and is that a real dynamic, or is that again another pipe dream or whatever, and so on and so forth, or what are the hang-ups? Who's going to come out of the woodwork to throw monkey wrenches into it and whatever, and so on. But hopefully that's the kind of discussion we end up getting into on Monday.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be live. It shows really interesting, great panel. And you can sign up to participate at drivingthedebate.com, and it's scheduled again for 2 p.m. Eastern Monday. That'll do it for this edition. Thanks to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO, and more information is available at motoetf.com. We want to thank Michael Senna for being with us this week. Always thought-provoking. And for more, you can go to his website at michaellsenna.com. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, SoundCloud, wherever you go to get your podcast. You can ask your smart speaker to play us too. My tech reports are at techstination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alan Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching, and stay safe.
And have a great day and a great upcoming weekend.